as a home inspector doing roof inspections, a lot of times when I'm on the roof, being up there creates more questions than answers.
Okay.
That's why I blow up your phone. That's why I call you. Hey, Chris, what about this right here? I don't want to say the wrong thing to the customer. If it's a roof I'm not familiar with, there's still roof materials out there I walk on. I'm like, how the hell do I describe this? Yeah. I don't know what this is. It looks like 30 years of just layer after layer after layer. You call them built-up roofs, right?
On flat roofs. Mm-hmm.
Right, like big apartment buildings and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, some days I just get stuck and I'm like, man, I don't even know how to identify this. So I just say built-up type roof. Mm-hmm. That's what I call it because it might have they might have coated it as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's under it.
Right.
It's real bumpy.
Mm-hmm.
So it could have been
multiple layers or.
Yeah. Do you think somebody might have been, I'm not sure if this is something roofers would do, but do you think a roofer may have gone over a stone coated roof with that material, or would they take that off first?
Well, so if you're talking about a asphalt and gravel roof, and then putting another roof on top of that, I do see that. It's not a practice that I would be fond of, or recommend, or have ever done, frankly.
Right.
And you see it from time to time. And you'll see it sometimes on residential homes that had a gravel roof. They're kind of maybe lower slope. Meaning, don't have as much pitch as you'd need, but they'll put either a rolled roof or even sometimes a composition shingle roof over the gravel. It's not a good procedure. Number one, those gravel
not going to
roofs,
last.
Yeah, it's not. And the gravel roofs are very, very heavy. If you were to do that, there are ways if you mitigate it and kind of scrape the gravel off as much as possible, did a really good thick underlayment, and then put your new roof on top. It might be viable, but frankly, I'm a much bigger fan of removing the roof in almost all cases prior to installing a new one.
Yeah, that would be my recommendations too. But we see all kinds of nasty stuff out there. It's pretty bad. So one of the biggest questions from any customer, I'm sure you get this as soon as you're done. How much? What's it cost? Well, that's a loaded question. For you, it may be simpler because, so like, for example, let's just use like a 2,000 square foot gable roof, gable type sloped roof. What if I'm looking at composition shingles that are 25, 30 years old?
Yeah.
What am I looking at to replace it if it's only one layer?
If the actual roof, are you talking about inside square footage of the house?
Inside square footage.
Okay, so roofs are typically going to be a third larger than the inside square footage due to the slope of the roof. The eaves hang out over the edges.
Right.
And often when you talk about 2,000 square feet on a house, you're not including the garage, which may be attached or detached. So that's another 400 or 500 square feet for a typical garage. So you're going up to, now you're at more like a 3,000 square foot actual roof.
Got it.
If it's a 2,000 square foot home. And on an average to remove and replace for composition shingle, you're probably close now to $7 a foot. So $21,000, something like that, to remove and replace.
Right.
$650 to $7 a foot would be I think a reasonable rate right now for replacement.
Now, what would the increase be on that if it had 3 layers?
Not terribly, not a whole lot more. Maybe an additional. When we talk about roofs, we break it into squares. So if you have 3,000 square feet, you have 30 squares. My multiplier would typically be maybe $7 per foot. If it's got multiple layers, maybe 3 layers, it maybe be $750 per square. So 10% more, something like that, if it's got multiple layers.
Okay, so nothing crazy.
Nothing crazy.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So multiple layers is something I come across a lot, especially on the flipped lipsticks on pig houses that I look at.
Yeah.
And it's quite alarming to see what flippers do with when they
do all the pretty
stuff.
Yeah.
Come on, the roof covers the entire building. Yep. Why are you not spending your money there? That impresses buyers. If I could only get a flipper on here, I'd educate them all. because they just don't do, most of them, only a few I've seen have been done really well.
I couldn't agree more.
Very few. So if you're listening out there, flippers, spend your money in the right areas and you'll impress the buyers and you have less of an issue closing. I'm telling you.
And it's the potential exposure down the road. I mean, roofing's the most litigated of any trade.
Yeah.
So
is the roof leaking? I don't know. It's not raining.
Yeah. The kitchen looks nice though.
Yeah. The kitchen looks great. All those new lights and shiny colors. Yeah. So with back to the multiple layers, here in Burbank, I've heard that if you have wood shingles still on your house and somebody went over them with composition, the city of Burbank's not a fan of that.
No.
So they like make you rip all that off. Do you know anything about that? I don't know the details of it. I've only heard rumors.
I've heard that said, that, the thing, it's funny how, and maybe you have noticed how many roofs you see with wood shingle underneath.
Yep.
And they just kept putting comp shingle on top. So maybe you've got 1, 2, 3 or more layers over the wood shingles, which are usually original to home construction from whenever, the 40s, 50s, even 30s.
Absolutely.
And so you're nailing that comp shingle into this crappy old wood shingle.
Yeah.
So it's just again, that's not a roof that I don't think that we've ever done a roof over a wood shingle roof. And I believe certainly in LA, I think it's been the late 80s since you've been allowed to do that, to put anything over a wood shingle roof.
In LA?
In LA. Now Burbank, maybe Burbank has, maybe the city or building and safety has information somehow on what houses have wood shingle underneath there, although that'd be tough to know.
The wood detective.
Yeah. Unless you're in the attic, you kind of can't tell. I mean, I can tell.
On the eves, sometimes you can see.
Yeah, I can tell because it's bumpy or I just know that, there's wood shingle underneath there. And, I'm going to double check in the attic, but I already know there is.
Yeah.
There's certain ways to know, but it can work. Putting a comp shingle over a wood shingle can work, and I see that it works. It's just not. They're skipping 2 steps. They didn't remove the old wood shingles, and they did install solid plywood sheeting,
right,
for a solid nailing surface for the new roof.
Now, is that a requirement now?
Yes.
Okay, so anything with skip sheathing needs to have a plywood put over it.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Everybody
get that? So inspectors, if you see skip sheathing and you see a new roofing job and there's no plywood, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So they're only trying to nail into the skip sheathing and hopefully they hit it.
Yeah.
And going back to your 5 layer, I have seen a house with 5 layers once. It was crazy.
It's crazy.
And
so much weight.
So you need at least a 5-inch nail to go through, because that's what people don't understand. So I want to break that down a little bit. When it comes to putting multiple layers on, you need to use the correct size nails now, because now you're trying to get through another layer of roof material to get to the wood so it actually fastens properly. Yeah. And I've been on roofs where I could see some of the shingles were coming loose, and I pulled up and a whole bunch just came right up with it.
Because it's only nailed into the shingle.
It's only nailed to the shingles below it, and the wind will blow that right off the roof. So it's... there's no upside to me, in my opinion. There's no upside to having multiple layers.
No.
Not to mention, now let's get into the weight of all that extra material on the stress on the attic framing members, especially if it's a house built in the 1920s with 2x4 rafters.
Right.
And there's no purlin walls up there.
Yeah.
So to support it. So it's like, if you come across that, what do you have to do as far as a roofer, and you're going to put maybe, let's say you went from a composition shingle to a lightweight concrete tile. Would you have to go in the attic and survey that first and make sure it can support it?
The rule of thumb is if it's under 6 pounds per foot, if the roof product is under 6 pounds per foot, you don't typically have to get a structural analysis when you're submitting for a permit. And so the manufacturers of concrete tile and even clay tile a little bit do have products that are that weight. So there's 6 pounds or less per foot. And then you're typically safe. Now you certainly can't install that over another roof product or over wood shingle. And you're going to get, if it originally was wood shingle, you're going to get some more stability by adding plywood to the surface as well. So that's kind of the rule of thumb.
That's always a good point. Plywood is good for racking, racking purposes. So yeah, that's good information right there. So once again, I've seen multiple homes, hundreds of homes with split rafters, and a lot of, and not to mention some of them are actually broken in half.
Yep.
Because it's just too much weight on the structure, and if it wasn't built, recently, it's not going to have 2x10 rafters. It's not going to have 2x8. It's going to have 2x4s.
Right.
But back then, I'll give them credit. The 2x4 is a little thicker.
They were actually 2x4.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not like 1.5 inches by 3.5 anymore, like they are now. But that's not a good combination to have overall. So cost-wise, we just talked about a example of 2,000 roof square feet. So what if it was a concrete tile roof?
Okay.
What do you think a price would be on that?
So, meaning it's concrete tile now, and they want to switch to new concrete tile.
Give it to me both ways. They may have composition they want to upgrade to.
Yeah. Now you're getting into closer to, again, we call it squares, so per 100 square feet, closer to $1,000. So probably 30-40% more than a composition shingle. Okay. So if the roof were actually 3,000 square feet, $30,000 roughly to go. It depends on what kind of concrete tile. Some are more expensive than others. We're pretty much, unless the house was originally structured for a heavyweight tile, we're pretty much going with lightweight tile on most all roofs.
Right.
When I say heavyweight, so standard weight tile is more like 10 or 11 pounds per square foot. So it's almost twice as heavy as the lightweight tile.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's hard to tell the difference just from the surface of the roof. You kind of have to actually have an actual tile to see which it is, if it's lightweight or heavyweight.
Right. So as far as the life expectancy of compositions, typically what, 20 years?
No, so composition shingle, there's a few different varieties. There's what's called 3-tab. That's the base level composition shingle. I call it an apartment grade shingle. So a 3-tab shingle has perforations. So that's the one with the lines. When you look up at the roof, it has 2 perforations in each shingle. And they're kind of the thinnest of composition shingles, typically 15 or 20 a year. And they make them even in 25. But I think 20 is a reasonable life expectancy for a 3-tab shingle. And then you go up to a dimensional composition shingle, which is probably what you'll see mostly in if you kind of took a helicopter around LA and in the valley, whatever. Just a typical dimensional shingle, they start now at what's called a 30-year life expectancy. They call it lifetime warranty. That came about maybe 20, 25 years ago when all the manufacturers were kind of trying to sell product, and lifetime warranty sounded better than 25-year or 30-year. Right. Frankly, those kind of shingles will go 25, 30 years, and they truly will last that long. I have on my house what was rated to be a 30-year shingle, and it is 24 years old, and it's still fine. I mean, like, looking for an excuse to replace it. I go up there, I'm like, this is really just fine,
That's good.
It still looks pretty good. And so those will go 25, 30, 35 years for the regular dimensional shingles. And then there's another category, which most people generically would refer to as presidential shingle. And that's the thickest version. That
was my next question.
Yeah, I thought so. So presidential shingle is much thicker, and it'll go 40 or more years. Frankly, for most people, when you're talking about 30 versus 40, the presidential shingle, there's also GAF makes a version called Grand Sequoia. And I believe Owens Corning has their own version of it as well. But Certainteed, which makes presidential, is the most popular one. And usually the emphasis for that kind of shingle would be more how it looks versus whether it's going to last 40 years versus 30 years. Yeah. It looks much thicker and much more. That's a
good looking roof material.
It really is.
I'm always impressed when I see that on a roof. I'm like, wow, this is a real, and I tell my clients that you got a really nice roof up there, and it was installed well.
Yep.
I said you get no worries for quite a long time.
They'll last more than most of the people that own a house will last.
Exactly. No, that's good. Yeah, I was going to ask you about the presidential because that's how I've learned to term them out to my customers. That's what I would call them.